Hello everyone, today we are going to cover Selenium WebDriver IDE session, and in this session we will try to cover all the basics of Selenium IDE and how can we identify web elements onto a web page using IDE. So it will help us to understand Selenium WebDriver automation in a better way, and that we are gonna covering in the next session, right? So let's begin with Selenium IDE. So I have created one blog onto WebDriver automation using Python Selenium WebDriver APIs. So you can have a look of this. You can simply type learn Python using practical examples.blogspot.in, and you'll hit my URL over there. So let's try to cover it up quickly, and thereafter we'll be in the next session we'll be focusing on to WebDriver APIs. So how can we do a basic web page automation using WebDriver APIs. So let's start with the introduction to Selenium. So Selenium is a free automated testing suite for web application across different browsers and platforms. Selenium consists of multiple tools. So first tool is Selenium IDE, integrated development environment, and it is a Firefox extension that can be used to automate the browser. So what can we do using IDE? We can record the actions that we perform onto a web page, and then we can save those actions, and later on we can play back all the actions. So we can create test cases based on our actions, and we can replay those test cases in future. Okay, so second tool in Selenium category is Selenium remote control. It was used to be used earlier, but it's no longer supported, and it is nowadays being used in production, wherein test cases were written into Selenium IDE, so it is being in maintenance phase. So nowadays everybody has moved on to Selenium WebDriver, so it is no longer supported. Third is Selenium Grid. It allows you to run your test in parallel, so you can run your test cases in parallel onto n number of client systems. And final one, fourth one, is the Selenium WebDriver that we will be talking about in the next session. So Selenium WebDriver, it is also known as Selenium 2, is the latest product that can automate browser actions. Unlike Selenium RC, it is not relying to JavaScript for automation. So this is a little bit in-depth thing. So Selenium RC used to use JavaScript. So JavaScript used to be running onto your web browser, and thereafter it used to capture your actions. But in Selenium WebDriver, we try to simulate native OS calls using WebDriver APIs rather than JavaScript, comes in between. Then now the first thing that comes in our mind is how to begin with Selenium. So this is my advice to everybody, to spend few days maybe onto Selenium IDE to understand how Selenium really works. So Selenium IDE would give you a feel of basic automation, you can say. What can you do? You can simply identify different web elements onto a web page. You can perform different actions onto those web elements, and you can save your steps, right? So it will give you a idea how can you identify those web elements. So there are 3 simple steps, right, to perform any automation web page automation. What's the first thing is to identify a web element onto which you want to perform any action, right? Second thing is what action you want to perform onto any web element, right? And third thing is to perform that action, what are the supported things that you would require. So to elaborate this thing, I can give you an example. So let's suppose you want to type in some text onto a username text box, right? So what you want to do, you'll firstly identify the text box, right? And you can do this using locators. Different locators are available both in Selenium IDE as well as in WebDriver APIs. So we'll talk about locators a little bit later. Second thing is, like, once you have identified any web element, what action you want to perform. So action may be type, right? You want to type something. Third thing is, what do you want to type? So you might need to type your username, right? So these are the three things that you need to remember to automate your web page. So to begin with Selenium IDE, you might need, so you'll need Firefox to be installed onto your system. Second thing will be Firebug. So Firebug is a add-on for Firefox. So you can simply check it out, your add-ons from here. You can type in Firebug. So you'll see a list of add-ons over here, and you can directly install those add-ons. So what are the other add-ons that you would need? Firebug is one, then Firepath you would need, and Selenium IDE add-on again you would need. So Firebug would help you to view or edit your HTML code of your web page that you want to test. Then Firepath would help you to locate that, to identify the XPath of any web element, right? And third thing will be Selenium IDE. So Selenium IDE would help you to play and record kind of feature it would provide you, right? That you can, based on that, you can create your test cases, and thereafter, if you want, you can export those test cases and you can modify it, whatever you want to do with those test cases. You can perform different actions. So this is how the Selenium IDE look like. So I had installed Selenium IDE and Firebug already. So let's have a look how Firebug looks like. So this is Firebug, right? And how does it work? So this is the inspect button, right? You can click onto this inspect button and you can locate any web element. So if I want to locate this search text, so I can locate it like this. I can click onto this and I can see the HTML code over here. So right now this Firepath tab is active, so it's showing me the XPath, right? You can see like XPath is being shown over here. If I click onto HTML, so I'll get the HTML code of this search button. How? Let's see. So if I want to check the HTML code of this search button, so see, now when I hover onto the HTML code, I can see that this search button gets highlighted, right? So using that we can understand like which HTML code refers to which HTML element onto the web page. Okay, then Selenium IDE. So right now this Selenium IDE I can directly open using this button, but in case if you don't see Selenium IDE over here, what you can do, you can go into developer options, and over there you will be seeing Selenium IDE, right? So by default it comes as in and recording on mode, so you can disable this recording and you can enable this recording using this red button. Thereafter, let's quickly move to this Selenium IDE introduction, like this is the menu bar. Over here you can see several options, right? So what you can do, you can create your test cases over here. So, and you can add on multiple test cases, like you can add new test cases as well, right? And once you have created multiple test cases, thereafter you can save these test cases for using this save test case option, or you can save entire test suite. So let's suppose you have added 3-4 test cases, and now you can save this entire test suite, and thereafter you can run this test suite using this button. This runs the entire test suite, and this runs the specific test case. Whatever test case you have selected over here, you can run that specific test case using this option. This option would help you to speed up your actions and slow down your actions. So whatever actions that you will perform, those actions will come in this editor tab, right? And so let's give a quick look, right, like how can we automate. So let's give a brief demo. So let's turn on this recording again, and let's say you want to type in something. So you can click Facebook, you opened it up, then you want to type in something, right? So you type test one, and you hit enter, right? You got this error. Now you just wanted to capture this, so you have turned it off. So see, these all actions have been recorded now. You can see this thing, right? These all actions have been recorded now. Okay, so now these all actions are recorded, and these all actions are recorded for this test case. First thing that you can do is you can save your test case. So save it somewhere at whatever location you wanna save it. So I have saved it like test1.py. So already one test case was saved, so I just wanna replace it. So that's it, right? That task case got saved. Second thing, now if you wanna play back this test case, you can again play back this test case using this button. So it will just load your Facebook, it will type in test1, and it will hit enter. So nothing would happen. You will get this error, authentication error, right? Okay, so now once you have recorded your actions, so this test case is ready, and you can export this test case in any language you want. So as we are gonna cover Python APIs, WebDriver Python APIs, so we can export it using Python. So test1.py, this is again already saved, so I'll just replace it, the existing one. Okay, so yeah, that got replaced now. So see, this is what we get. So it will give you a clean Python API, Python WebDriver API test code for the actions that we performed, right? We recorded those actions, and thereafter we exported this test case in Python WebDriver API. So you can directly run this code onto your system, provided you have installed Python, and thereafter you have installed Selenium and unit test modules, because this test case requires these two packages to be there on your system, and you can easily run the test case, right? That's it. What else you would need? So let's go back over here. So yeah, so we had also seen, like, when we played back this task case, so this task case got passed, and that's why we are seeing green. And so one task case got run and it got passed. If it would have got failed, so we would be seeing field count would be 1, and this green color would get turned to red. Fine. So this is log pane. So this log pane shows you whatever actions that you performed. So it will give you a list of all those logs, right? So, and here you can modify the log level. So right, by default it comes as info. You can make it debug. Debug would be more verbose, that I think you don't require, so you can keep it info. So these will tell you whatever operations it got executed. So this reference tag would help you to understand these commands that got executed. So you can see the definition of each and every command that you can encounter over here in the editor pane, right? So to briefly cover these three tabs that we are seeing in this editor window. So first thing is that all these commands are executed in sequential order. If we talk about this open command, so this open command actually opens a web browser window and it hit the URL that has been written over here. Right now it's showing just a single slash, but because we already had this tab opened, but if you wanna open it up again, so you can modify your test case a bit, right? You can mention this exact URL that will get opened up in a new browser window, right? You can save it. Second command was the type. So it typed this credential. Alright, it typed this credential, and so type was the command and this was the locator. So all these targets are called locators. Using that you identify any web element onto a web page. So there are different locators available. ID is one of the locator that would help you to identify a web element, and then value would be the can be considered as a parameter that is passed on to this command. So you need to type something, and for that you will have to identify a web element, and thereafter you can type this value, right? So this is the parameter, and you can say an optional parameter to this command, because this open command doesn't require any parameter, so there isn't any value. But this type command requires a parameter because you'll have to type something once you have identified any web element and your selected command is type, and so on. So these all are the type commands. And click and wait. So click and wait will just click onto an object or web element, you can say, and it will wait until the next page gets loaded. So, and you can again see the definition of click and wait. What it says like click onto a link, button or checkbox, and if the click action causes a new page to load, it will wait. It will call this wait for page to load. So until that next page gets loaded, it will just keep on waiting, right? So this is pretty much about the basics of this Selenium IDE. We can use IDE for one more purpose, that is to identify any web element. So let's discuss it further. Okay, so let's go back to our page again. So out of this page, so this is how Selenium IDE look like, right? You can have a look at this blog where you'll get more details, and so these are the actions that you can perform into Selenium IDE. You can toggle your recording using red button over here, you can start it to stop your recording. Then you can, okay, now you can see your actions converted into Selenium commands. So these all commands are called Selenium commands. And what are the different commands supported onto Selenium IDE? You can refer this URL, right? And once the task is, once you have you are done with your actions, you can save your actions into a task case, like we discussed earlier, and that's it, right? And you can export your task case as any into any a language, into any supported language. So because we saw several languages, you can choose any language and you can export your task case. You can export your task case in Java, in C#, in Python, Ruby, and so on, right? Okay. Now command target value we already discussed. So you might need to understand basics of HTML code and XPath before moving further for WebDriver automation, because these are the very basic things. So like we can see over here, HTML, so w3schools.com is a good site for basic tutorials. You can go over there and you can see this HTML tutorial. You can have a look of all the things that are mentioned over here. What is a web element, right? And what is an attribute? So you can just have a look of all these things. Similarly for XPath, you can use W3 Schools. Okay, so so there is one more website, newtools.dima.com. That is usually used for testing purposes. If you want to just write down your test code, so you can test your code onto this website. So you can just have a look at this website as well. So if you want to see one more feature of Selenium IDE is, like, you can locate any web element using Firepath. That's one thing, right? Yeah, using Firebug you can locate any web element. And once you have identified, so one of the basic of HTML is, like, this thing is called as tag. So input is the HTML tag over here, and this name equals to this, size equals to this, and type equals to this. These all things are known as attributes, right? So this is tag, these all are attributes, and this whole thing becomes a web element, because this whole thing is representing one web element onto a web page, right? Because it's representing me this username text box, right? So this is the very basic thing that you should know, and you can also go through the several details in this W3 Schools HTML tutorial, right? Now let's come back to Selenium IDE. So let's say you wanna identify, you wanna locate this web element. So how can you locate this web element? You can locate it using this thing. So over here you will be seeing that name, size, and type, these are the three attributes, right, available for this web element. And as name works as a locator, you can use name over here and you will write down its value. Its value is user name, and you can click onto this find button. So this find button will highlight the highlight this username text box. So it will show you that this is a valid locator, and you can use this locator to identify this username text box onto this web page, right? So this locator you can use in Selenium IDE, and similarly this locator can be used for WebDriver API as well, right? So what are the different locators available? Let's have a look of this. So ID is one of the locator, right? You can use Selenium, you can use this ID locator, and you can identify anything that you want to do. So like this. So once we have reached over here and we want to see, so we will be hovering on this email or phone text box, you would see that ID is available. So for this web element you have this ID locator available. So now you can try it out. You can try to identify this web element using ID locator. ID equals to its email, right? So you can just write it down over here and you can just click onto this find button. So you'll see that this text box is highlighted. So that means like this locator is able to detect this web element, right? And that solves your purpose, right? You can use this locator and you can identify this web element, and thereafter you can, once you are identified, you can perform any task. Maybe you can type in the email, so you can type email over here. All right, so second locator is name, that we have already seen. Third one is a link. Yeah, so link is also a good locator. So these all are the links, right? Sign on, register, support, and contact. You can just hold on to this element and you'll see href. Href represent a link onto a web page, right? So you can identify this element using its name. So register, make sure the case should get met because this is case sensitive, so you'll have to write it in caps. So link equals to register, and it got identified, right? So it is able to detect, so you can use this link directly into your code. Okay, good. And there are few different locators, CSS and DOM, that also you can use, but these are rarely used locators. Okay, just quickly get in. Let's see an example. So the syntaxes of all these, both of these locators have been mentioned over here. You can write it down directly. So CSS equals to tag hash ID. So ID we seen over here, right? Okay, so tag hash ID. So tag is what? This input is a tag hash, and then ID is what? The value of ID, right? It's email, and you can identify this web element, right? And so you can try out these different syntaxes. So all these syntaxes should work. Similarly for DOM also you can try out these syntaxes, and all these syntaxes will be working. But now let's have a look at this XPath locator. So this is very good locator and it is very important, so you must be using this XPath locator frequently in your WebDriver automation code. So what does this XPath do? So firstly you'll need to go through this tutorial, XPath tutorial, but in short, this XPath actually traverses your HTML code from top to bottom, right? And as soon as it matches a match, right, it will identify a element. So it traverses the tree, it assumes the HTML code in the form of a tree, and it tries to identify a node out of the entire tree based on the expression that you will be providing, right? And once that element gets identified, thereafter you can take your action. So for basic thing, what can you do? You can simply as you have installed this firepath, you can simply locate the XPath of any element using this thing. So it's showing you the XPath of this web element, though this XPath is the absolute XPath because it traverses from the root node. Root node is HTML over here, so it traverses from top to bottom, and it gave you this web element, wherein it is not necessary that you provide the absolute XPath. So that is why you'll need to learn this thing, and you can shorten this XPath using relative paths. So using double slashes you can make it relative, and you can just check whether this XPath really works or not. So I'm not sure whether this XPath would work, but let's have a try. And so it's able to identify this element, right? So you can try to make your XPath as short as possible, but for that you'll need to get the in-depth knowledge of XPaths, right? There are different syntaxes of XPath that you can just go through it, and you'll be able to identify any web element using XPaths. And XPaths are mostly used to identify elements into a table, and mostly into a table wherein it's gonna be difficult to identify that element. You can use XPaths. XPath is a little bit slower as compared to ID, name, and link locators because it traverses your HTML crowd from top to bottom. So it is always advised you to prefer other locators on top of XPath, right? So over here inside this options you would see this locator builder tab. So over here you would be seeing all the locators available into a descending order. So what really happens when you type in any locator in this target and you hit the find, it starts searching this locator from top to bottom order. So it will try to identify. So firstly this locator will try to match using its ID. Thereafter it will try to match using its link. If this also doesn't work, then after it will try to locate your web element using its name, and so on. Right. Okay, that's it, right? What else we can see is one more thing that is pretty important. So let's say if you have used a locator that matches multiple elements onto a web page, so what will really happen? It will match the first web element that actually matches that expression. So because why this really happens, because it tries to start your matching from top to your HTML code, and it traverses towards the bottom. So whichever web element is matched to that pattern, it will just return you that web element. So you'll need to be a little bit cautious for such scenarios where multiple web elements are matching using the expression, using the locator expression that you provide. So in those cases you need to be using indexing. So in that case you can use the specific index, because it would return you the first one, but you wanna you intend to locate the second element. So in that case either you can make your expression more precise, right? So, or either you can change your locator. So you'll have to just make sure that these things are properly handled. So that seems to be done for this session, and As this was the very basic session wherein you learned what are the different locators, how can you identify a web element using Selenium IDE, and what are the different features of Selenium IDE, right? So you can write down your test cases, you can save your test cases, you can run again your test cases, and you can export your test cases in whichever language you want, and so on. So this is sufficient for now, and in the second session we'll try to cover up Selenium WebDriver APIs, and we'll see how can we automate different test cases using Python Selenium APIs, right? Thank you. Bye bye.